Toward the end of my first year in seminary, I got a call from my old high school college buddy, Tim. He'd been promoted a couple years before at a restaurant chain where he was managing a regional group of restaurants. And he was getting a lot of pressure from one of his bosses to fire the manager at one of his restaurants. But he knew the guy. He knew the guy from when Tim himself had been a restaurant manager. They had worked together. And he knew he was hardworking. He knew he did well with his employees. He was a model manager, and he couldn't figure out why his boss wanted to get rid of him. Well, the bottom line isn't good enough, is what Tim heard, and that's what he told me about. He says he's just not making sales like he should. And so Tim was really worried about it, because here he was going to have to fire a friend. And I said, you got any time that you can take some vacation? Maybe come down and we'll talk about it. Come down and visit me at the seminary. I said, yeah, I think I could do that. I think that would be helpful. Well, he came down to visit me, and we were sitting in my study room at the seminary, and he was telling me that the real problem that was going on with this restaurant is that it was close to an intersection of two 6-lane roads. And so there was only access from one corner to be able to get to the restaurant. There was eventually going to be an access road built around each of the corners. And once the access road was built, it was assumed, according to the report that had defined how to position the restaurant, that it probably would be successful, but only after the access road was built. And it still hadn't been built. And so Tim said, I can't fire this guy. We don't have enough evidence yet. Well, we're sitting in there talking, when all of a sudden into the study room comes Rob Schwarz. Rob Schwarz was about to graduate from seminary. He was your typical mountain man. You know, he really looked the part. He had long hair. He had a beard. He wore blue jeans, a flannel shirt, and hiking boots all the time. It wasn't for the fact that the shirt changed colors from time to time. We would have thought that's all he ever wore was one outfit. Well, he poked his head in the study room and said, hey, we're going to Wet Cave today. You want to go? Well, Wet Cave was this notorious cave that was down the mountain from where we were going to seminary, where you could crawl back into the mountain for miles and see some amazing sights. I had never been, so I wanted to go. I said, Tim, you want to go? He said, why not? Let's go. So we got together with about 5 of us. We got our headlamps, we got our gear, we got everything together. And next thing you know, we were pulling up next to this stream coming out of the mountain, and there it was, a giant opening that we could go in. So Rob, who was the mountain man, he was the naturalist, he was the one who knew the cave, had been there many times, let us in. And it was pretty amazing. We followed the creek the whole way in. It was a very small little creek, but we followed it. And at one point, we ended up in this gigantic cavern. The ceiling must have been 15, 25 feet away, and it just opened up for hundreds of feet around us. And we had to hike over these giant boulders to get to the next opening on the map. And as we're hiking through these boulders and climbing over top of them, Rob says, you know, these rocks that are here on the floor, these gigantic boulders, and he takes his flashlight and takes it up, points it at the roof, and says, they all fell from up there. They may have fallen millions of years ago, but they did fall. He said, shut up, Rob. Well, anyway, we kept walking. Next thing you know, we came upon this flow stone that looked like a waterfall frozen. It was about 4 feet tall and just came right down toward our feet, and underneath it was the creek that we had followed in. It was gorgeous. That's where we sat and had lunch. When we finished lunch, Rob says, okay, now for the final part of the trip. We're going to go there, he said. And he pointed to this opening on the other side of the flow stone that was maybe about 3.5 feet high. I said, we're doing what? He says, we're going there. I said, but the creek goes there. He says, yeah, you got one leg in the creek and one leg on the side, and you crawl on your belly. How long? About 100 feet. I don't know if I want to do that. We're all looking at each other. No, you guys can do this. Trust me, you can do this. I'll lead the way. And so Rob goes in, crawling with one arm and one leg in the creek, and one arm and one leg on the shore. And he starts it. Next thing you know, Tim and I are right behind him. There we go. One arm on the shore, one arm in the creek. One leg on the shore, one leg in the creek for 100 feet. And about 75 feet into it, Rob says, you know, this big slab of granite that's right above us, if it decided to fall, it wouldn't fall slow. Shut up, Rob. Well, we finally got through to the other side. And again, it opened up into a cavern, just like the one we had seen before with boulders all over the floor. But this was different. We could hear water. We could hear water. And we looked to the far side of the cavern, and there was a small stream coming down into a waterfall. And Rob said, you ain't seen nothing yet. And he took us off into one of the side caverns, and we looked up, and there was a waterfall coming down right in front of us. Had to be at least 30 feet high. It was beautiful. It was pooling down below and feeding the creek that we had just walked along. We sat there staring at it for the longest time. And then Rob said, let's turn out our lights. All of them. So one by one, we turned off the headlamps. One by one, we turned off the lamps we were carrying. And then when the last light went, it was the darkest thing I had ever experienced in my entire life. There was literally nothing that could be seen. I waved my hand in front of my face, thinking I might be able to see some kind of movement, something. There was nothing. And we left it that way for a little while, until all we could hear was the water falling and our own breathing. And after about 2 to 3 minutes of total darkness, Rob turned on his headlamp. And because our eyes had been covered completely in darkness, just turning on that one little headlamp illuminated the entire cavern we were in. We could see all the way up to the top and that waterfall. Soon we all got our lights back up, and we went back to that place where we had to put one arm in the creek, one leg in the creek, one arm on the shore, one leg on the shore, and crawl that 100 feet back to the flowstone. Problem was, is the first time we did it, we realized we were in the wrong cavern. We were about halfway through it, so we had to turn around by going out into the creek, getting back, and going back to where we were before to find the right cavern. At least we finally got there and got out of the cave. Next day, Tim said he was going home. He said, something about that cave made me think. What I need to do is I need to go to my manager and show him that study about the access road and point out that until the access road was finished, which probably wasn't going to be for another 18 months, that restaurant was probably going to lose money. So let's just support the manager until the access road comes and see what he can do. Because he said, you know, when I was in that cavern, it suddenly dawned on me that shining a little light in the darkness makes everything look better. So I just need to shine a little light on this man's career.